It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Doug Smith brings you this portion of the show. Doug Smith, of course, dealerships in American Fork, Spanish Fork, and in Linden for all of your needs. If it's a used car, if it's a brand new car, they can take care of you. Nobody knows cars like Doug. Nobody knows this college football playoff committee like Bill Bender does. We got all the answers, right, from the new commissioner. I think we're all set. I think we already know exactly how this thing is going to go. How did the new commissioner do, by the way, this week? Yurchek was put into a weird spot, and good for him for stepping in and answering the questions. But it's got a new face this week, and I guess it's business as usual, right?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. Whoever's that commissioner, we're all going to say what he said was ridiculous, no matter who it is, right? Like that's how that works.
I love it.
I get on those, and then I read the transcripts if I'm not on the call, and I can read into that. Like there's certain arguments that people were going to argue. Notre Dame, Miami is probably the big one.
Right.
You guys are bringing up the Big 12. What do we do with that second Big 12 team? I think actually the Big 12's better bet is if BYU or Utah were to beat Texas Tech. Then
right.
You can have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because Texas Tech, to me, I think they should be borderline top four. They've been able to accomplish.
I'd agree with that. Based on what you're seeing right now, what is the committee getting right? What are they getting wrong?
I think they got one right. I'm in the Ohio Central Ohio bubble, but I mean, we can quibble at Ohio State who they've played, but they just haven't been challenged.
Right.
They've dominated defensively every game, and they look the part. We'll see. Their season will crank up here when they play Michigan after Rutgers, and then they get Indiana probably in the Big Ten championship game. But I think Georgia is right where they belong. And I mentioned Texas Tech because I think they slide up. If they were to win the Big 12, they would slide up to 4 anyway because they would drop one of those SEC or Big Ten runner-ups down, and that would make sense to me. So, yeah, I think most of that's right. And I actually think they stacked up Oklahoma, Alabama, and Notre Dame correctly too. So I don't have a ton of complaints.
If you look at kind of the way things shook out this week, and I think the biggest ones, like you said, people were looking at, JJ and I, every Monday we go through and we kind of or every Tuesday we go through and do our guesses before the actual playoff rankings come out. And we put, I think we were fine putting Alabama at 10. We both felt like that was exactly where they were going to go. Sometimes it just matters what time of the year you suffer the loss. And I think that also losing at home didn't help. And yet at the same time, Alabama seems like a team that would find its way back into the college football playoff again. And if they're not in the SEC championship game, which it looks like they're not going to be, that almost helps them too because they just keep winning and keep going along and let other people kind of lose in front of them. I think being in the 10th spot is probably okay for them.
Yeah, and that's one of the flaws of this whole thing is that it's probably more advantageous for them not to go to the SEC championship game, and just go 10-2 and, hey, we're in the clubhouse. Kind of like Georgia right now in the SEC race. It's better to be 7-1 and in there, and you can sit back and watch Texas and Texas A&M, and you can watch the Egg Bowl and all the Lane Kiffin drama. But they're playing Charlotte and Georgia Tech, so they're in good shape as well. That's part of it. And then, like I said, the only other thing I would say that maybe I missed earlier, I would have put James Madison in the top 25. I'm okay with that, but I understand that those American Conference teams have kind of switched rules every week. I think it's the 4th different American Conference championship we've had this season.
It's kind of wild to watch which of the G6 teams are going to get love week to week, and somebody's going to find their way in. So that's part of it. I did see somebody make an argument that said, "Why are we inviting those guys to this party anyway? Is there an argument to just not have a G6 team who's not even close to the top 15 or top 12 rankings to even be a part of this?"
I'm worried about that long term. I'm not worried about it. I mean, I think it could become a thing long term. I mean, last year was different. You had Boise State had the Heisman runner-up,
right,
an incredible running back, and they were in a close game in the fourth quarter. I think on any given year, I saw a projected line if Texas Tech were to play James Madison, for example, it would be a 24-point spread.
Oof, wow.
What's that spread going to be if they play Tulane? Probably similar, although Tulane has at least played some teams tough in the Power Four and beaten a couple of those teams. So I'm not the biggest fan of that personally, but I'm also a grad of a MAC school, and the dream would be if you said Ohio University was in the first round of the playoff and was a 31-point underdog against Georgia or Tennessee, I would say I'm in anyway because my school's in the playoff, and I think that's part of it.
Looking at the rankings, and you look at the 2-loss teams, because it's going to be interesting to see which of those teams stay at 2 losses or drop or whatever. There could be some chaos, but also unlikely based on opponents. But you look at Notre Dame, and they're the second highest ranked 2-loss team. Oklahoma leaped them, and for good reason. I think everybody understands that. But do you think Notre Dame has the best case among those 2-loss teams? Do they deserve to be in that position, especially ahead of Alabama, ahead of a Miami team that they lost to head-to-head?
Well, I think Notre Dame is fine where they're at. And, it's some of it. I hate the term eye test, and I hate to use it on your show, but, man, they look good. They've looked good since those 2 losses. They've played really well. They're running the ball effectively. The defense is good. I do think why the argument with Miami is going to get so heated is the Hurricanes won. They beat them. And the Hurricanes aren't going to have this, obvious path to the ACC championship game.
Yeah.
I don't think they can get in unless they need they're the one that needs the chaos to happen. Because if Miami were able to get to the ACC championship game, I think they could take the debate off the table. But, the head-to-head has to matter. And, Miami's losses aren't terrible. They lost to a Louisville team where they played really bad. They lost to SMU because of the turnover. I would argue Notre Dame's losses are better. They opened the season at Miami, tight game, and
no
they lose to A&M by 1 point. So I think that's one of the advantages the Irish have. And let's be real, they're not leaving a 10-2 Notre Dame team out of the playoff.
Well, we've always hoped that they would, but those 2 losses. It really does matter too. That's the other flaw I think of this system is that you get dinged on when in the calendar you lose the games that you lose.
Yeah, I've never liked that either. And you're exactly right. That's always been college football. If you're going to lose, you might as well lose in September. You can pass off any number of excuses because we all have short-term memories. But I think what you said with Alabama really resonates with me because I was like, yeah, they lost the game. If they lose that game home on September 9th up here at Blade, their offense wasn't there yet. They were just struggling to run the football. But it's November, and they're struggling with turnovers and running the football in that loss. So it definitely has more impact. Certainly has some impact on that SEC race. But, if there are flaws in this thing, that's one of them. I'm still excited about the next couple weeks. I think this weekend's not over the top on the schedule, but rivalry week is going to have a lot of nice wrinkles to it, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. BYU is an interesting case. After losing to Texas Tech, they were as high as 6, but dropped 6 spots after that loss. And I know they got beat pretty good there, but that's their only losses to a top 5 team. Do you think BYU was dropped too far? What do you make of their case?
Probably a little bit, and I think they can play their way back in, obviously, if they take care of business in Cincinnati this weekend. As somebody in the Eastern time zone, I did not appreciate Sonny Dykes calling timeouts and running the football at 2:30 my time. I was ready. I was ready for bed, but what I do is you stay up until the last team in playoff contention is done, and so I stayed up and watched. But BYU did bounce back in a big way in that game. They were very physical, ran the football well, and we'll see if they can do that against Cincinnati this weekend. But they're really, unfortunately, I don't think 11-1 BYU or they're going to have to win the Big 12. I don't think a 11-2 BYU team that loses the Big 12 championship game would get in the playoff. And that's unfortunate because they're a tough team. Yeah,
and everybody says, "Oh, that was such a bad loss against Texas Tech." Was there some version of them going to overtime or making it a 1-score game where people look and they go, "No, that's a way better team on a neutral surface"?
Well, yeah, and then you look at Utah and their case, which is they're crushing people right now, they're putting up a ton of points. Their offense has been amazing the last 3 weeks, and I know they're blocked off on some level because of those head-to-head losses. But if they got a little bit of chaos and got in, a little bit more interesting team to me because I wonder what a Utah-Texas Tech rematch would look like. I know what the score was the first time, but I watched that game all the way through, and it was a game in the first half, and then a couple things happened there in the second half. Utah had some turnovers, some mistakes. Backup quarterback stepped in for Texas Tech and had a great fourth quarter, and then it was kind of route was on. But you guys watched that game too. It was tight into the second half. It's not like it was it's kind of like how people are saying Georgia blew out Texas. They did, but it was in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I don't know if you had a chance to dive into this too much, but as you look ahead, and as we wonder, is there a team in the top 10, top 15 that can fall back, that can slip up? Is there teams in the back that can jump up? Where does the chaos come from, do you think? What chaos can you foresee coming up here in the last 2 weeks?
Well, if USC beats Oregon, that's one. I mean, that would the Trojans could make a run here. They could get to 10-2 and be that fourth Big Ten team, and they could argue, hey, we lost to Illinois by 1, and we lost to Notre Dame on the road in the wet, rain, gross weather, and that was a game into the fourth quarter. I think they're one team to watch, and then vice versa, Oregon. What if they lose to USC and lose to Washington? Not out of the question. But
right.
I do think the Ducks have played well enough last week in particular that won't happen to them, but they're one team to watch. And I know, again, in the Central Ohio bubble, I had this big, long discussion today, and I said, Michigan beat Ohio State last year, and Michigan was much worse than they are this year. And it's in Ann Arbor, and you never know with the weather. Not impossible. And if the Wolverines were able to win that game, as bad as they looked against Northwestern last week, they would have to be considered for a playoff berth as well. Yeah. And then Oklahoma has to play LSU and Missouri. I don't think those are layups. No,
they're not. That's another team.
Is there a way that that this whole thing, what's just an absolute chaos scenario for this whole thing to go down? Because I'm all for that. I always you said when you said, hey, that final week of rivalry week will have a couple wrinkles in there. I want the wrinkles. I want the chaos. So what's kind of a chaos scenario that could happen?
Well, I mean, the biggest one is Duke's 5-5 and can still get to Charlotte. If some upsets happen. I triple checked it. There's that site that has all the scenario generators you can do. And I'm like, there's no way. But because they only have the 2 conference losses, if they get a 6-2 conference pileup, I mean, I don't think the ACC wants that to happen, but it could. And that would be the most shocking thing that can happen. The most shocking thing that will happen, I mean, I don't really see it anywhere other than, what happens with the ACC, who's that champion going to be. I do think Virginia has a decent chance to win that conference, and then people are going to look on conference championship weekend and be like, why is that NC State game not an ACC loss? And they played them in a non-conference game because of the way these schedules. That's happened in the Big 12 too. I watched, wasn't it Arizona, Kansas? Kansas State last year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was this year. They finally kind of got back to hey, we're playing real games. There's no not a conference game this year. But then there's also the idea too. I was talking about this with somebody because the Alamo Bowl could feature BYU and Utah because of Utah's Pac-12, ability that they have to face one another. And here locally, that would just send both fan bases into a massive no. But ESPN will go, yes, absolutely. Right. So I don't know. There's a lot of chaos that can happen, but it's also one of those things too where we've also had this discussion here locally that Brett Yormark of the Big 12 is not putting that Utah BYU game on the last game of the season where it's kind of historically been when they've been in the same conference. And this is the kind of year where you go, oh my goodness, that would be so much fun to have this game last game of the year.
Oh, yeah. The same conversations go on up here about Ohio State and Michigan. And I think that will come to a head the first time that they actually do have to play each other in a Big Ten championship game. Because I just don't know. And you guys are close to it there, obviously. Can you foresee having those emotions for 2 straight weeks with those 2 programs? I've watched enough Utah BYU games that I can feel it through the television.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys could handle it either. So
it might be a bit much.
I actually like that they – yeah, I think it would be fun to see them play in a conference championship game, and that's why I don't mind that they have that game where they are. With Ohio State and Michigan, as crazy as it sounds, in this 18-team league, I think it's going to be tough for that to happen But the first time it does, just knowing those fan bases, they'll go through the very same thing you're talking about.
Man.
It's like suddenly the best, biggest, and most important game in history also gets to like oh man, we're burned out on that, man. I can't feel those
Fox
feelings
would love
again.
it.
Oh yeah, again the TV ratings though. The rest of us go, give me round 2.
It'd be great for
but
them.
we also know that feeling as well of those teams having to face one another again would be wild. But Bill. So many things that we have to consider here in the world of college football, and I know that we have a lot to get to. I know JJ still has a question.
No, yeah, we've been talking a lot about the playoff and the chaos and everything. There's another thing that I think is interesting is the Heisman race. I don't know if you're a voter or not, but is there a player in your mind that's emerged as the best player in the country? Because to me, it's not like it's been in the past few years where there's been a clear-cut one or two. It's wide open right now, and we only got 2 games left in the regular season.
Yeah, I do vote on the award, and it's an honor to be able to do that. It's really cool. I always vote on it the Monday after the conference championship games. You never vote before those. I take a day to all right, let the emotion wear off from the weekend, and then Mendoza, Julian Sayin, obviously at the top right now. And they'll play each other in the Big Ten championship games. But I still think the 2 best players in the country are Jeremiah Smith, who's injured right now, and then Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back, who every week has a highlight reel touchdown. Then there's quarterbacks like Haynes King and Diego Pavia. If Diego Pavia somehow gets Vanderbilt in the playoff, how can you ignore him?
Right.
Getting them 10 wins and that program in the college football playoff. So, like you said, there are plenty of names. It's still wide open. And it is a late, not like last year where it was like this time last year I was probably literally sitting here saying, am I going to vote for Travis Hunter or Ashton Gianti? That was the question then, and that's not the question this year.
Well, you guys can cheat off each other's notes. JJ's a voter too, so he just took a ton of notes. All the stuff you said, he just started furiously writing it down. He's like, "Oh yeah, me too." No.
I am so wide open. In the time I've been doing it, I don't remember such a wide open race. So it's going to be interesting the last 2 weeks to see if anybody separates themselves.
Well, and also 0 of the names that were mentioned at the beginning of the year are in this conversation right now.
Right.
Which is also
that's
the way
crazy
I like
part too. Yeah, all the quarterbacks that we had, there was a lot of disappointments, and that makes it fun. I know Jeremiah Smith is the one name we had on our preseason list that I was like, he's still there, but his numbers aren't over the top.
Right, the injury's kind of sabotaging that, right? I mean, the numbers aren't there. You're right.
Carnell Tate has good numbers too, so tough, but it's really hard for a receiver to win it anyway. So I think it is wide open. Some of these games you could have a surprise. I'm trying to think of a surprise guy at the end. And to me, it would probably be Haynes King. Not a super surprise, but maybe he carries them past Georgia somehow, like he almost did last year. Maybe he leads them to the ACC championship game, and guys are like, oh, wait, this kid right here is the most valuable player on a team that would not be in the playoff without him. And I like his game. So that's the type of kid that could do it. What about the Texas Tech linebacker?
Oh, see, that's what I was going to ask. The Jacob Rodriguez discussion is funny here.
I love Rodriguez, but
I don't. But see, I hate the gimmicky crap where they're like, let's get him a couple touchdowns. It's
and
like,
honestly,
come on.
Scatterbo came at the very end. It's
wow,
I really got to think about Scatterbo. So
yeah, but they're scoring multiple touchdowns and they're making crazy impacts on these games.
It's tough for a defensive player.
I get annoyed by the idea of being like, put him in. Yeah, you could put a lot of players in at Wildcat and run them and go, look, he scored a touchdown. And you're like, yeah, I know.
Right.
Like, of course he did. Like, let's go. Like, it's crazy. All right, Bill Bender. You can dip in, of course, on Sporting News, get his vibe on where the rankings are, and then we'll be able to harass him about his Heisman vote a little bit later in the season. And then you guys can compare notes. So, all right, Bill, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for hanging out with us this week.
Thanks, Bill.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on. You guys have a great weekend.
Absolutely. You too.